Welcome back to the Right Wave Audio community. My name is John, and for this video, we are continuing our Home Theater Amplifier 2022 series, and this time it is NAD. If you've been following this series, we've been covering down each brand of amplifier that is commonly used in home theater situations. We started with our first video, which was Monolith by Monoprice. Then we went to Emotiva, ToneWinner, IOTAVX, Outlaw Audio, ATI, and the last video we did was OSD, which brings us to this one, which is NAD. This is a video that many of you have asked about if this was going to be in our series, and of course we would cover NAD. They've made some very fine amplifiers over the years. The models covered in this video will be those that are more commonly seen in home theater situations. So we're not covering the custom integration distribution amps that NAD has, or any of their integrated amplifiers or streaming amplifiers. So what we have on this list is the C268, the C275B, the C298, and then their master series, the M23 and the M28. And these range from about $1,000 up to over $5,000. The first model that we will look at is pretty much their entry-level model, which is the C268. And this one sells for $999. It was introduced in about 2017. And this gives you 2 channels of amplification, as many of these models are just limited to 2 channels. And it does it for 80 watts. And as we always say, is we'll cover those details about how these were measured and give you some clue about what 80 watts per channel means in this case. This model has both balanced and unbalanced connections. And it has some interesting things on the back of this. You can actually adjust the input level of the source that is coming. So we haven't seen products that did have that feature in there. The cosmetic design of these NAD models, and this has been their really classic styling has been such limited, design. This is very plain, and that's the way NAD likes it. So this is the 268 model. When we open this up, we can see where NAD is going with their amplifiers. Now, traditionally, they've been doing AB, Class AB amplifiers, but what they're doing now is they're going in a big way to Class D amplification. And most of the models in this review are Class D. This particular one from 2017 introduction, they use HyPEX modules for the amplification, and this is their UCD, but what their literature says is this is a customized version. So the picture that I have here is one from the HyPEX website, and you can see you don't really have a component that matches that look inside this model, but you do see a board that does clearly say HyPEX on in the inside of this. The other thing you will note that this has a switch mode power supply and not a toroidal power supply, as many of the units that we've covered in this series does. The only other models we see with the switch mode to date have been those from Emotiva. Now, looking at their next model up in price, the C275BEE, this sells for $1,499, and we see literature that dates back to around 2008, so this one has been out on the market for a while, and you can tell the cosmetics on this are from a prior generation. It looks a little different than anything else in the catalog here. The model number here, it seems a bit odd with all the letters in there until you realize that this is named for the initials of Bjorn Erik Edvinsson, who has employed in here his distortion canceling circuit. So this is a a signature piece with technology taken from their master series. The two channels of amplification deliver 150 watts per channel. Now, what's different about this model than all the others is it does not have balanced inputs. So only unbalanced RCA are on here. It does give you a level adjustment as with the prior model in here. And it does give you speaker terminals for an alternate set of speakers, a speaker B, but that doesn't give you the same power rating if you're using both simultaneously. Looking inside the 275 BEE, we can see that this is a Class AB amplifier, and it's the only one in the current portfolio of NAD. They have clearly gone all Class D, but this one does remain. This is the oldest unit in the portfolio, and it does have a toroidal power supply. Another thing that's unique about this model in their portfolio. It's the only one with a toroid. So they're clearly going to more modern approaches to amplifiers. But if you're interested in the classic AB design with a toroid, the C275 BEE remains. The next model up is the C298, also a two-channel amplifier, and this delivers 185 watts for each of those channels. This sells for $2,399 and was introduced in 2020. Now, on this one, it is very similar to the design of the 268, and it does have the balanced as well as the unbalanced connections. It also has a line output, and this is something the 268 model also has, and we hadn't seen this on amplifier products, so this allows you to daisy chain down if you have a second amplifier and you want to have the same signal go to that other amplifier. Perhaps you're doing by amplification. Just please note that the line out is only unbalanced RCA, so you'd want to have those two amplifiers close to each other, maybe stacked right on top of each other. But again, it has the input level variable adjustment. So this has been a theme of NAD. The other thing I would note that, and this is unique to the 268 and the 298, is instead of having a black or a white for the negative speaker terminals, they're using a blue binding post here. So that's, I guess, a unique signature of these products. Looking inside the C298, what we see here is a difference from the other Class D that we've already seen. This is not using a Hypex module, but a Purify Eigentalk module in here. And you can see the two channels there close to the back of the unit. And again, it is using a switch mode power supply to handle the power to those modules. We now bring you to the Master Series with the last two models. New for this year in 2022 is the M23, and this comes in at $3,749. Like the other models, it is a two-channel unit with balanced and unbalanced inputs. This particular model does not have a variable input as the other ones have, but rather a high, medium, and low switch. The styling of the Master Series stands apart from their regular line, with its silver finishes complemented with the black panel in the front. I think this is a very good look, although some of you with home theaters may not like the silver reflections if this was at the front of your room. I personally don't mind such things and would be happy to have something that looked this nice in with my other equipment. This is delivering 200 watts per channel into the two channels it has. Looking inside the M23, we also see that it is using a Purify Eigentalk modules, and two of them, but this layout is a little different than the prior model. And then Finally, the M28. This is their top of the line, $5,500. This gives you 7 channels of amplification. So this is their only multi-channel amplifier in their portfolio, and it's delivering 220 watts into those 7 channels, all channels driven. Balanced and unbalanced inputs are here. You can select between either or. This does not have the variable input values that you see in the other models, or even a switch to select different levels. This unit is also using the Purify Eigentakt modules, just like the M23 and the 298. It's just a nice, clean implementation, very, very well built, and it should be for the $5,500 cost. Now let's look at these side by side, and we can see the kind of the pairings here that the C268 and the C298 look very similar, using the same chassis there, whereas the M23 and the M28 have a similar look and feel, although the M28 is a little taller, and the C275BEE is clearly showing its age with the more classic NAD styling. Turning around these to the back, we can see that the 268 and 298 are the only ones that are using the blue speaker terminals on the back. The other ones are using more of a clear with the traditional red and black behind them. And of course, as it gets always more interesting inside, the comparison here is certainly more interesting. The M series, the Master series, definitely look more robust inside compared to the C series, although the C275BEE with its Class AB design and toroid power supply, it ups its game just by the sheer fact of how that design has to work as a Class AB. But yes, the C classes are definitely the C268 and C298 are certainly more simplistic in their interior circuitry here than the M class or the 275BEE. Now for the specification comparison. So here we got 5 amplifiers from NAD. 4 of them are 2-channel models. Now one thing I didn't bring out before is these support BTL bridge tied load modes, so you can get more amplification. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later and how much that brings powers up when you do it into bridge mode. And of course, one multi-channel unit, which is the M28, is the only one that gives you 7 channels of amplification. The impedance on these varies model to model. The C268 comes in at 33 kilo ohm for the input impedance, and on an unbalanced line, and if it's a balanced line, at 10 kilo ohm. The 275BEE goes from 10 kilo ohm if it's fixed on the input voltage, and if you turn it to variable, it's up to 100 kilo ohm on the variable input. The C298 is 56 kilo ohm, whether it's unbalanced or balanced. Same for the M23, and the M28 is 23 kilo ohms for unbalanced, 47 kilo ohms for balanced. These all give you a trigger input, which is good, but only the C268 and 298 give you a trigger output, and that's something we like to see on every model. Unfortunately, it's only on those. I would have expected those to be on the Master series as well, in case you want to daisy chain. The input sensitivity measured at 8 ohms goes from the 0.75 volts on the C268 and up to 4.5 volts with the M23 if set in the low gain position. The cost per channel ranges from $500 a channel up to $1,875. The Master series becomes more affordable in the 7-channel unit, which brings that cost down to $786 and represents a good value there. for the quality of product you get. Now, as mentioned earlier, the C268 uses a high-PEX customized UCD module, and the 298, M23, and M28 use the Purify Eigentalk module. The gain of these modules does vary as well. In fixed mode, the 268 is 25 dB, although when you use the variable setting, it goes from 14.5 to 34.5 decibels. The 275 BEE is 29 dBs of gain. The 298 is close to that at 28.6. The M23 with its 3-position switch, the low, medium, and high gain, gives you 19, 24, or 29 dBs of gain. The M28 is 29.5 decibels of gain. In the literature for the C series, they talk about 2 ohm loads. This is the first manual that we've seen in our series where they outwardly talk about compatibility with 2 ohm loads up to 8 ohm loads. The Master series, they only talk about it going down to 4 ohm, although it probably can handle times when speakers dip down below 4 ohms. The line output is only available on the 268 and 298 for bridging to another amplifier. As far as amplification, the 268 starts in at 80 watts per channel. That's doing it whether it's an 8 ohm or 4 ohm load. The 275 BEE gives you 150 watts per channel, 8 or 4 ohm loads. The 298 is 185 watts into 8 ohms, or 340 watts into 4 ohms. The M23 is 200 watts into 8 ohms and 400 watts into 4 ohms, and the M28 is 220 watts into 8 ohms and 340 watts into 4 ohms. All these rated at all channels driven, full range 20 to 20,000 hertz, and respectable total harmonic distortion ranging from 0.03% in the most entry-level model to 0.003% in the high-end model. Signal-to-noise ratio values are provided for everything but the M23. These are really good numbers. For where they give you A-weighted measurements, it's over 120 decibels. At the 1 watt measurement, it's hovering around 100 dBs, between 98 and 102 dBs. So these are putting out good signal-to-noise ratios. We suspect that the M23 is a new model. They just haven't published that yet. All the 2-channel models can operate in bridge mode. That brings it to 500 watts for the 268, 800 watts for the 275 BEE, 620 watts for the C298, and 700 watts for the M23. The M28 does not have a bridge mode. Keep in mind that the bridge values for the 268 and the 275 BEE are done at 1 kilohertz, 1%. We like them to, we'd rather see full range values there, but NAD generally does pretty good about their measurements there. On to the dimensions. NAD, uses fairly small chassis. They don't have these big honking models out there. So these are in modestly sized chassis. The weights on these range from 16.1 pounds, 7.3 kilograms, up into 37.9 pounds, 17.2 kilograms, looking at the 2-channel models. And of course, the 7-channel models is the heaviest at 46.7 pounds, 21.2 kilograms. And the largest unit is the M28 as well. This one is 6.2 inches high, 156 millimeters. They're all about the same width and depth there, with the M23 being the deepest one there. And a note about the M23's measurements. Something looked wrong in both what's on the website and in the manual, and they were huge values. I can't quite remember what they were. It was bigger than the M28. I said, that doesn't sound right. So I started looking at some of the retailers that are selling this, and they appear to have the correct dimensions, those that are reselling this product. So that's what is in blue here, is the corrected values. So if NAD, you're seeing this, you have probably some corrections to do for the dimensions. Of course, this product was recently released, so you haven't probably had time to correct that. They all have an IEC removable power cord. They all support international voltages, both 120 and 240 volts. They're all auto switching, auto sensing what that line voltage is. They're all using switch mode power supplies except for the 275 BEE, which is using a toroid. And that one is consuming 312 watts. I did get a recent comment that says we should be publishing also the standby power ratings. We'll do that in the future. Some of those are worried if you leave these things powered on 24/7, that you'll be consuming a lot of energy, and that's not always the case. These are peak values that we're showing in these reports. They don't publish capacitance or crosstalk, but they do publish damping, which in the 268 and 275 models are fairly low, 100 and 180, versus the other models are up around 750, 800 on the damping factor. Several of these models have a chassis ground, except for the 268. So that is good, and we're going to start noting that as well, because that's necessary at times. If you're using unbalanced connections and you're hearing a hum, you may want to make sure that you're connecting a chassis ground on there, which can eliminate any hum. So that wraps it up for NAD. What do you think? What do you think about NAD's move to Class D and use of the Purify Eigentalk modules in many of their products? This is a bold move, and other reviews have been looking at this, speak very highly of the Purify modules. Like the guy that started Purify came from Hypex. He's the one that designed the highly acclaimed Hypex modules. Some say the Purify modules are even a step up from the Hypex modules, and they're very quiet and they're very clean. So there's been very good reports out there on the Purify modules. And so NAD is gone in a big way for these. And what are your thoughts? That feedback would be useful to the RipeWave Audio community. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And be sure to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when the next video is posted. And always now, you can choose to become a Patreon, and at www.patreon.com/RipeWave, and have access to our research, our spreadsheet with all this data, and our PowerPoint files. So I hope you can consider that, and if you do, we really appreciate it, and we appreciate those who have already joined that community. Until the next time, keep evolving your audio experience.